Some marriages survive years, but they never discover why they exist. Two people can share a house, share a bed, share children, share bills, and still miss the divine assignment God placed on their union. And that is the tragedy no one talks about. Because the greatest danger in marriage is not fighting. It is existing without purpose. A marriage without purpose slowly becomes routine. Then routine becomes boredom. Then boredom becomes distance. Then distance becomes silence. And silence becomes emotional death. You can love each other deeply and still drift apart when you do not know why God joined you together. That is why some couples look happy in public but feel empty in private. Because chemistry can start a marriage, but only purpose can sustain it. Listen carefully. God did not create marriage just so you could post anniversary pictures. He did not create it only for romance. Not only for children. Not only for companionship. Marriage is spiritual. It carries kingdom weight. And until you understand the purpose of your marriage, you will keep fighting battles you were never supposed to fight. You will keep comparing your marriage to others. You will keep feeling like something is missing. You will keep asking why your relationship feels heavy. Because purpose gives meaning to pain. When purpose is absent, every sacrifice feels useless. But when purpose is revealed, even hardship begins to make sense. That is why you must discover why God brought you and your spouse together. Not culture. Not pressure. Not loneliness. God. Ecclesiastes chapter 4 verse 9 says, "Two are better than one, because they have a good reward for their labor." Notice that scripture did not say they merely exist together. It says they labor together. There is work attached to marriage. There is assignment attached to marriage. There is impact attached to marriage. Your marriage is supposed to produce something bigger than both of you. And the enemy knows this. That is why Satan attacks marriages so aggressively. Because a purposeful marriage becomes dangerous to darkness. A husband and wife united under God can raise godly children, heal broken people, build ministries, change generations, break family curses, create stability where chaos once ruled. The enemy does not fear weddings. He fears purpose. And maybe that explains your battles. Maybe the pressure is not because your marriage is weak. Maybe it is because your marriage carries something valuable. The devil does not attack empty things. Think about Adam and Eve. Before sin entered the world, God gave them purpose. Genesis chapter 1 verse 28 says, "Be fruitful, and multiply, and replenish the earth, and subdue it." God united them with mission in mind. Marriage was never supposed to be two people staring endlessly at each other. It was two people walking side by side toward divine purpose. That changes everything. Because when purpose becomes the center, petty things lose power. Not every disagreement becomes a war. Not every weakness becomes a threat. Not every hard season destroys the relationship. Why? Because both people understand something greater is at stake. And this is where many couples fail. They prepare for the wedding, but not for the assignment. They spend months planning decorations, but never ask God why He joined them together. And then reality comes. Bills arrive. Stress comes. Children come. Temptation comes. Misunderstandings come. And suddenly the feelings that once felt strong begin to shake. Because feelings were never meant to carry a marriage alone. Purpose carries marriage through seasons emotions cannot survive. There will be days you do not feel butterflies. There will be seasons where life exhausts both of you. There will be moments where your spouse disappoints you. But purpose reminds you that your marriage is bigger than temporary emotions. Listen, if your marriage exists only to make you happy, it will collapse under pressure. Because no human can satisfy every emotional need perfectly. But if your marriage exists to glorify God, then even imperfect moments can still produce something eternal. That is powerful. Because purpose changes your perspective. You stop asking, "What am I getting from this marriage?" And you start asking, "What is God trying to do through this marriage?" That question changes everything. Maybe your marriage exists to show forgiveness in a generation addicted to quitting. Maybe your marriage exists to model faithfulness in a culture celebrating betrayal. Maybe your marriage exists to raise children who will impact nations. Maybe your marriage exists to heal patterns of divorce that have plagued your bloodline for generations. Maybe your marriage exists to reveal Christ through love. Ephesians chapter 5 verse 25 says, "Husbands, love your wives, even as Christ also loved the church, and gave himself for it." Do you hear that? Marriage is supposed to reflect Christ. That means your marriage is not just about you. It is a living testimony. A picture. A revelation. The world should look at Christian marriage and see evidence of God's love. Not perfection, but grace. Not flawless people, but covenant people. People who stay committed even when life gets hard. Because covenant is deeper than convenience. And this is where many people misunderstand marriage. They think compatibility is everything. No, Purpose is deeper than compatibility. Because two compatible people without God can still self-destruct. But two surrendered people with purpose can overcome storms together. You need more than attraction. You need alignment. You need spiritual direction. You need vision. Amos chapter 3 verse 3 says, "Can two walk together, except they be agreed?" Agreement is not merely liking the same music, or enjoying the same hobbies. Spiritual agreement means moving toward God together. That is purpose. And one of the clearest signs you have discovered the purpose of your marriage is this. Your union pushes both of you closer to God, not farther. A purposeful marriage convicts you when you drift spiritually. It sharpens your faith. It challenges your character. It exposes selfishness. It teaches sacrifice. It teaches patience. It teaches humility. And honestly, that is why some people struggle in marriage. Because marriage reveals who you really are. Marriage exposes pride, immaturity, control, anger, selfishness, not to destroy you, but to transform you. God often uses marriage as a refining fire. And sometimes the purpose of your marriage is not only what you build together externally. Sometimes the purpose is who both of you become internally. That is deep, because many people enter marriage wanting comfort. But God also uses marriage for growth. And growth is uncomfortable. There are prayers you prayed that marriage is answering. You asked God to make you patient. Then He gave you opportunities to practice patience. You asked God to teach you love. Then He placed you in covenant where love requires sacrifice. You asked God to mature you spiritually. Then He used marriage to expose areas needing healing. Nothing is wasted, not even the difficult seasons. Romans chapter 8 verse 28 says, "And we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are the called according to His purpose." According to His purpose. There it is again. Purpose. God wastes nothing in a surrendered marriage. Not the tears, not the waiting, not the struggles, not the rebuilding. Everything can become part of the testimony. But you must stop viewing marriage only through the lens of personal satisfaction. Your marriage is ministry too. Not only from a pulpit, but through daily living. The way you speak to each other. The way you forgive. The way you handle conflict. The way you remain faithful. People are watching. Children are watching. Your marriage may preach louder than your words ever will. And perhaps that is why the enemy fights communication so much. Because communication builds unity. And unity releases strength. A divided marriage leaks power. But a united marriage becomes spiritually dangerous. That is why Satan loves offense, assumptions, bitterness, pride. Because if he can destroy unity, he can weaken purpose. Guard your unity. Fight for peace. Not because everything feels perfect, but because purpose matters. And hear this carefully. Purpose does not mean your marriage will look like everyone else's. Some marriages are called to ministry. Some to business. Some to adoption. Some to mentoring. Some to missions. Some to hospitality. Some to healing broken families. Stop comparing assignments. Comparison is killing gratitude. Your marriage does not need to imitate another couple to be powerful. It only needs to obey God. And sometimes purpose unfolds slowly. Not every couple immediately understands why God joined them together. Some discover it through pain. Some through prayer. Some through serving together. Some through surviving storms they thought would destroy them. But one thing remains true. Purpose always leaves clues. Pay attention to what repeatedly burdens both your hearts. Pay attention to where your unity becomes strongest. Pay attention to the lives changed through your relationship. Pay attention to what God keeps calling both of you toward. Purpose leaves fingerprints. And sometimes your greatest struggle points toward your greatest assignment. The marriage that survived betrayal may now help restore broken couples. The family that overcame financial hardship may teach stewardship. The couple that battled infertility may become spiritual parents to many. God often turns wounds into ministry. But only surrendered couples experience this transformation. Because pride resists purpose. Selfishness resists purpose. Control resists purpose. Purpose requires surrender. Not my will, God's will. And that is difficult in today's world. Because modern culture trains people to leave when things become uncomfortable. But covenant says, we fight for what God joined together. Matthew chapter 19 verse 6 says, "What therefore God hath joined together, let not man put asunder." That verse is deeper than many realize. Because sometimes the man trying to separate the marriage is outside influence. Sometimes it is temptation. Sometimes it is pride. Sometimes it is unresolved trauma. Sometimes it is ego. And sometimes it is spiritual attack. Not every battle in marriage is merely emotional. Some are spiritual. That is why prayer matters. A marriage without prayer becomes vulnerable. Because you cannot fight spiritual battles with human wisdom alone. Pray together. Even when it feels awkward at first. Even when words are few. Because prayer reconnects hearts. Prayer softens pride. Prayer invites God into wounds. And where God is welcomed, healing becomes possible. Do not underestimate spiritual intimacy. Many couples know physical intimacy, but not spiritual intimacy. They can sleep together, but never pray together. They can talk about bills, but never talk about God. And eventually the marriage becomes emotionally dry. Because human love alone is limited. You need divine help. You need grace. You need God at the center. Not as decoration, not as tradition, but as foundation. Because storms reveal foundations, and every marriage will face storms eventually. Health scares, financial pressure, loss, disappointment, misunderstandings. No marriage escapes testing, but purposeful marriages survive differently. Not because they avoid pain, but because they remain anchored. Anchored marriages bend without breaking. And if you are listening right now while your marriage feels tired, do not give up too quickly. Some of the strongest marriages today once looked hopeless. Some couples you admire once cried themselves to sleep. Some relationships now filled with peace once survived seasons of silence and pain. Healing is possible. Restoration is possible. But both people must become willing to pursue purpose over pride. And sometimes the first step is simple honesty. Not pretending. Not performing. Honesty. We are struggling. We need God. We cannot fix this alone. That honesty can become the doorway to transformation. Because God cannot heal what people continue hiding. And maybe this message is reaching you at the perfect moment. Maybe God is trying to awaken something inside your marriage. Maybe He is reminding you that your relationship is not random. You were not joined together accidentally. There is purpose attached to your union. There is impact attached to your obedience. There are people your marriage is meant to inspire. There are generations your marriage is meant to affect. Never underestimate what two surrendered people can become in the hands of God. A praying husband changes atmospheres. A wise wife builds stability. A united couple creates legacy. And legacy is powerful, because purpose outlives feelings. One day beauty fades, energy changes, youth passes, but purpose remains. That is why some elderly couples still hold hands with tears in their eyes after decades together. Because they built more than romance. They built covenant. They built history. They built purpose. And purpose creates depth. Real love deepens over time when God remains at the center. It becomes less selfish, less shallow, less performative, and more eternal. That is the kind of marriage this generation desperately needs to see. Not fake perfection for social media. Real covenant, real forgiveness, real faithfulness, real prayer, real love. And maybe the reason your marriage feels under attack is because your marriage carries oil. Maybe heaven sees something in your union that hell wants to stop. Do not quit in the middle of becoming. Do not abandon purpose because of pressure. Diamonds are formed under pressure. Strong marriages are too. And one day, the pain you survived together may become the testimony that saves another couple from giving up. Imagine that. Your scars becoming someone else's survival guide. Your restored marriage becoming proof that God still heals. Your covenant becoming evidence that love still exists. That is purpose. So seek God together. Not occasionally. Consistently. Ask Him, why did you bring us together? What assignment have you placed on our marriage? How can we glorify you through our union? And when He begins revealing answers, protect them fiercely. Because purpose is precious. And remember this before this message ends. A successful marriage is not merely one that lasts long. A successful marriage is one that fulfills heaven's intention. Length without purpose is empty. But even imperfect marriages become powerful when surrendered to God. So stop chasing the image of a perfect marriage. Chase the presence of God inside your marriage. Because when God becomes the center, love matures, healing begins, unity grows, purpose awakens, and two ordinary people become something extraordinary together. Not because they never struggled, but because they discovered why they were joined in the first place. Your marriage is more than romance, more than survival, more than appearances. It is assignment, it is covenant, it is ministry, it is legacy. And if you truly discover the purpose of your marriage, you will stop merely trying to stay together and start changing the world together.